Members, good morning. This is the appointed time, and we have a quorum. So I call this meeting to order. This is the Bills Committee on Gas Safety Amendment Bill 2025. So we'll start the third meeting. Let me invite the administration to come in first. Deadline for public submissions expired on the 26th of May 2025. The Secretariat has received one written submission from the Chinese Dream think tank, and the submission has been uploaded to the electrical website. Please refer to paper number CB bracket 2 1064/2025 bracket 01. The Secretariat has also asked the administration to provide a response, and we'd like to start by going through some of the follow-up action items. And the administration already issued a response to members. I think members should have received it. There is also another reply from the EMSD. The Chinese version of the reply was uploaded to the website today. Members, in relation to the follow-up actions required, please refer to CB bracket 2 1086/2025 bracket 01. Now, I will invite Mr. Chang Shin King, Chief Engineer of the EMSD, to walk us through the administration's response to the items raised at the last meeting. The response paper is CB bracket 2 1086/2025 bracket 02. Members, if you want to speak, please press the request to speak button now. I will give the floor to Chief Engineer Mr. Chang. Thank you, Chairman. At the last meeting of the Bills Committee dated the 22nd of May, members urged the administration to clarify the definition of gas being primarily hydrogen and other matters. Now, in relation to A1, 2, 3 set out in the list of follow-up actions, the question was whether the proposed new definition of regulated hydrogen could specify the standards for the concentration, purity, and pressure of hydrogen as a means of expressing primarily hydrogen in its definition, and will reference be made to the laws and regulations in the mainland and other places such as the European Union. Now, as set out in my written reply, we conducted some studies, and we understand that the relevant legislation in other jurisdictions do not provide a specific definition on the concentration, purity, or pressure of hydrogen. Now, having regard to other common law jurisdictions' practices, our original proposal is a gas that is constituted by hydrogen and other constituents. The gas is used or intended to be used as fuel for the propulsion of a vehicle, train, or the operation of any machinery other than machinery of a vessel or aircraft. And that is the current definition proposed in the bill. Having regard to members' suggestions, we propose to revise the definition by referencing the requirements of international standards on hydrogen quality ISO 14687/2025 hydrogen fuel quality as follows. A gas A that is constituted by 1. Hydrogen, and 2. Other constituents, if any, that are non-flammable as a whole, and then B that has a hydrogen concentration of at least 50% by volume, and C that is used or is intended to be used as fuel for, and then so and so. So after considering the views, we've decided to provide greater clarity to the definition. According to Section 8.1 of the Gas Safety Ordinance, the Chief Executive in Council may specify the requirements on technical standards or technical parameters for the applications of regulated hydrogen in the subsidiary legislation or code of practice to be introduced so that members of the public will not be subject to any impact, including and danger to the lives and properties due to fire, explosion, or other danger arising from the importation, manufacture, storage, transport, supply, or use of gas, or the carrying out of works in the vicinity of gas pipes. We've made reference to the quality requirements in CAP 51A, that's gas safety, gas quality regulations. We are of the view that if the amendment bill is passed, the Chief Executive in Council may specify the requirements on technical standards or technical parameters in the subsidiary legislation or codes of practice to be introduced in future. So subject to members' views on the proposed new definition of regulated hydrogen, we will finalize the wordings with the Department of Justice and then officially submit the committee stage amendments. Now, question B1 relates to whether the proposed additional power of the CN Council to make regulations in relation to regulated hydrogen and related matters will be affected. As mentioned in Part A, we will remove the expression of primarily hydrogen and instead establish a clearer definition of regulated hydrogen. So the proposed additional power of the CN Council to make regulations in relation to regulated hydrogen and related matters will not be affected. B2. It's a question on the preliminary ideas and regulatory direction for the new subsidiary legislation. According to the reply here, the major regulatory areas covered include 7 aspects. 1. Supply quality of regulated hydrogen. 2. Registration of company carrying on businesses such as importation, manufacture, supply of regulated hydrogen. 3. Control of the construction and use of hydrogen installation. 4. Control of the hydrogen container. 5. Use of regulated hydrogen in the hydrogen system as defined in the bill. 6. Permit for hydrogen conveyance vehicle. And 7. Registration of individual responsible for tasks related to the fabrication, connection, disconnection, testing, commissioning, decommissioning, maintenance, repair, or replacement of hydrogen systems on hydrogen vehicles. So much from us on this reply. Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your introduction. The floor will now be open. I will read out the names of members waiting to speak, starting with Mr. Chan Siu-hong and Mr. Andrew Lam. Now, we do have a lot of time, so I will give each member 5 minutes questions and answers for a start. Mr. Chan Siu-hong. Thank you, Chairman. I'm reading from the response to the discussion at the meeting on the 22nd of May. I'd like to commend the administration for heeding our views. We started the clause-by-clause scrutiny, and then, whilst going through the bill, some ambiguities have been identified. Now, the administration earlier emphasized that the trades were consulted, and basically no problem has been identified. But in relation to the implementation details and the possible misunderstanding or misconception that may arise from the amendment bill, the administration has heeded our view, and instead of adopting primarily hydrogen as the expression of the definition, the regulated hydrogen's definition has now been revised by making reference to the ISO standard 14687 version 2025. And that's an international standard on hydrogen fuel quality. Now, I'd like to ask for greater clarity. Specifically, apart from ISO 14687, I see that you have provided a specific definition, and that is a gas that is constituted by hydrogen. Well, I find this expression all right because, after all, this bill seeks to regulate hydrogen. But then there is also subsection B that has a hydrogen concentration of at least 50% by volume, or A2, other constituents, if any, that are non-flammable as a whole. I'd like to know the rationale behind these provisions. Now we are concerned about the possible loophole or legal vacuum or overlapping legislation. So on the one hand, I support doing away with the primarily hydrogen expression. But on the other hand, well, the definition provides that it has a hydrogen concentration of at least 50% by volume, then although the EMSD may say that at the moment no such products with concentration below 50% by volume is available in the market, but you can't rule that out in the future. The second question is this. In relation to Section 8.1 of the Gas Safety Ordinance, the CN Council may specify certain requirements having regard to some circumstances for which the administration decides to regulate. So this is the power given to the CN Council. Now, it doesn't say regulated hydrogen here, but if it's not a catch-all provision, then say in the future, if we have a gas with hydrogen concentration of more than 50% by volume and the other half of the content is flammable, then will it be included in the definition? I understand the trade's perspective is that the definition should not be too broad in scope, but when it comes to hydrogen and in particular gas safety, I do think that a broader scope should be included. So the administration should consult the trade again and see when it comes to the code of practice or implementation details. The CN Council can then make regulations and specify requirements. Right, two questions. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chan, for the questions. As per our revised definition, if it's a gas that is constituted by or has hydrogen concentration of at least 50% per volume by volume, and that the other constituent is flammable, then it will come under Cap 295, the Dangerous Goods Ordinance. So the other framework applies in relation to dangerous goods. Well, I'll see if my colleague has anything to add. Now, this bill targets hydrogen used or intended to be used as a fuel. Now, if it's a gas mixture, then we need to consider the content of the mixture, whether it should be regarded as hydrogen in general. And that depends on technological advancements, because once you have other gases in the mixture, the whole nature of the gas and the characteristics may be different. So it's really hard to judge at this point whether the gas is hydrogen. At the moment, what is available in the market or the future direction of this technology is, as pointed out here, that is hydrogen and constituents that are non-flammable as a whole. Chairman, I have the following suggestion. Let's see if it works. How about this? For regulated hydrogen, as long as the gas has a hydrogen concentration of at least 50% by volume, then it should be covered. Can you tell us whether there are difficulties in adopting this definition? Will there be difficulties for the trade? If not otherwise, why do you need a distinction between whether the other half is flammable or non-flammable. Can you tell us why?
Administration. Thank you for members' comments. Now, we are adopting extreme scenarios. Say 50% is hydrogen and 50% is a flammable gas. This mixture, how dangerous is it at this moment? We cannot say. And for this piece of legislation, we have all along been communicating with the trade that hydrogen will be used as a fuel, and this is the scenario we adopted. So, we are legislating for the foreseeable risks. That's why we have suggested that only the remaining 50% being non-flammable will be regulated under the Gas Safety Ordinance. I need some time to digest this information. I do appreciate the administration briefing members outside of the meetings on the details of the bill. I think the administration should review the definition, seeing that you are about to consult the DOJ on the proposed definition. I think you have to consider different combinations. Say, if the gas is constituted not only by hydrogen but also flammable gas, you want to regulate such under the Dangerous Goods Ordinance to prevent there being a loophole. I think maybe after the meeting we can communicate more. I think risk assessments are very important. If you are unsure in any shape or form, or if you don't even know the level of risks involved, I think it's probably best to have a catch-all approach, which you're adopting right now. And I don't mind that if that is the case. But then I think we also need to formulate a way forward and have further discussions in future. All right, Mr. Chan, you may digest the information now. If necessary, you may speak again. Thank you, Mr. Andrew Lam. I would like to thank the administration for making clarifications related to the definition of primarily hydrogen. Sorry, Mr. Lam, can you speak into the microphone because you came out quite softly, your voice. All right. I would like to say this. I also raised some concerns on the definition of hydrogen conveyance vehicle. And there is a definition of hydrogen conveyance vehicle in the interpretation. I think I now understand your stance on the definition of primarily hydrogen, but for the definition of hydrogen conveyance vehicle, I think you're referring particularly conveying regulated hydrogen only. You do not specify what kind of hydrogen it is. So you have some hydrogen that is under regulation under this ordinance and some that aren't. And I was reassured last time that there will be different definitions under the Gas Safety Ordinance and the Dangerous Goods Ordinance to have them regulated in terms of conveyance or manufacturing. So there will be two different sets of criteria. But what I understand is that if some criteria are fulfilled under the Gas Safety Ordinance, it will be under the regulation of Gas Safety Ordinance, and the same applies for the Dangerous Goods Ordinance. So hydrogen conveyance vehicle, means of motor vehicle designed and constructed or adapted primarily for the conveyance of regulated hydrogen on roads. So is it the case that this will apply to both regulated hydrogen and non-regulated hydrogen? That is, hydrogen conveyance vehicles that are conveying both types of gases. Or I keep an open mind on what your stance is, but I just want to know. Thank you. Mr. Eric Wong. Mr. Andrew Lam's understanding is quite correct. Hydrogen conveyance vehicles can convey both regulated hydrogen and non-regulated hydrogen. They can also convey dangerous goods by applying for a dangerous goods conveyance permit under the Dangerous Goods Ordinance. But the condition is they can't convey both at the same time. They can convey both at different times. That is what is applied to LPG at the moment, and the trade is quite familiar with this. I have a follow-up question. So if something happens, since two sets of criteria are being adopted, who is going to be the enforcement department? Mr. Eric Wong. When they are conveying regulated hydrogen, the EMSD will take enforcement action. If they are conveying dangerous goods, enforcement action will be undertaken under Dangerous Goods Ordinance. If they don't know what kind of substance is being conveyed, the EMSD actually has an agreement with the Fire Services Department. The EMSD will first go and take enforcement action to ensure safety of citizens. Alright, so if this substance is unclear to be hydrogen or not, then the AMSD will take enforcement action. If it is made clear that it is a dangerous good, then the Fire Services Department will take over. Correct. Thank you. Mr. Lighton Kwok. I want to say something here. I appreciate the administration for carefully reviewing the suggestions of the Bills Committee and introducing amendments. I have some questions. So, for your response, A2, you will say for the definition, you will amend the definition of regulated hydrogen. Why are you amending the definition of regulated hydrogen? When you're talking about one that is 51% hydrogen and 49% being other gases. Now, 49% of other gases may be flammable, but it may not be past the flammable limit. So, for the 49% gases that are non-flammable, we need to add the part that says as a whole in particular to say that they are non-flammable as a whole. Excuse me. I want to ask, so for a gas that is 47% methane, they will not be considered something to be regulated under the Gas Safety Ordinance. I believe it should be under the regulation of the Dangerous Goods Ordinance. Your understanding is correct. I also have another question. So you said you have referred to an ISO standard for hydrogen quality. I'm not sure if it is possible under the law that you can say you are referring to this specific ISO standard. I think in your response it is made very clear. If you can make clear this in legislation, I think it is clearer to others reading the law as well. And I think there will not be any confusion in definition. Yes, DOJ. I think we can add some notes if necessary, but on this occasion, whether it is a suitable approach, I'll leave it to the Bureau or the relevant departments to decide. Well, it's just a suggestion. I keep an open mind. If you think you should introduce this amendment, I'm fine with that. If you, having reviewed this, think it is not necessary, I'm also okay with that. Thank you. Well, it's now my turn to speak. Whether we should add a note, as Mr. Lai Tung Kwok suggested, I think the administration can review the drafting after the meeting. I also had another question that Mr. Lai asked. When you said other constituents that are non-flammable as a whole, what it meant in particular, and I appreciate that you have already given a response. Any other members who have follow-up questions? I do thank the administration for giving us a very detailed response on the concerns raised by members on the last occasion, and that has formed solid foundations for our coming discussions. If members do not have further questions, we will move on to the continuous of clause-by-clause examination. We were already on 3.4. Any further questions on 3.4? If not, let's go to 3.5. I ask members to refer to page 1 of the marked up copy. I will now ask the chief engineer to lead the clause-by-clause examination. Chair, I will go through the clauses one by one, and there are specific amendments to the English text, and I will refer to those when we come to those. Otherwise, we'll mainly refer to the Chinese version. Thank you. I'll now start clause-by-clause examination. On the interpretation, we have added other than regulated hydrogen and then for suppliants, we have also added some changes. In the definition of gas main, we have added other than regulated hydrogen. Excuse me, I do note that there are questions from members. Mr. Tony Tse, thank you. I think for gas appliance, they said in particular other than regulated hydrogen. Is it because there is already regulated hydrogen, so you do not need, well, you're regulating hydrogen already, so you need to exempt regulated hydrogen from the regulation of gas appliance. It's just a gas here, because I think in future hydrogen may be used as a fuel in different appliances. Thank you. Indeed, we have definitions for hydrogen installations and hydrogen systems, and there is regulation of regulated hydrogen under those, so which is why we are making an exception here. Even if you are not making an exception here in terms of enforcement, we talked about who is going to take enforcement action here. With you making an exception here, is that going to cause any confusion in the enforcing department?
Here, for gas appliance, gas fitting, and gas main, we are referring to those for domestic uses. That's coming from town gas supply or LPG. So to avoid confusion, we will have a separate system for regulated hydrogen. Right, for convenience, I think please pause after each and every section so that we can see if there are questions from members. Next, again, under installation type, we add other than regulated hydrogen in bracket. And then manufacture, we delete the word or in A2, and then we have another subclause for regulated hydrogen under A, because the manufacturing of hydrogen will be subject to regulation if used as a fuel. So this will be added. Next, may I refer members to the English version. Page 2. Manufacture. Now, under this definition, point B, we will delete ship or road tanker into a tank. It will be replaced by vessel or road tanker to a tank. So the change is from ship to vessel. According to the Department of Justice, the word vessel should be adopted to capture a wider scope. Mr. Tony Che. Or rather, Ms. Doreen Kong first. Thank you, Chairman. Road tanker. Is there a definition? There is a definition in the Gas Safety Ordinance. Thank you. Next, Mr. Tony Che. Thank you, Chairman. Now, I have a question. So, under manufacture, the transfer of gas from one container to another, if there is a change in the form or pressure of the gas, then will it be regarded as manufacture? Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. In the course of manufacturing, say a factory manufactures hydrogen, and afterwards hydrogen inevitably will be stored in a container or in a conveyance vehicle. So this will be regarded as manufacture and is therefore included in this definition. Right, thank you for the follow-up questions. Please continue. Coming back to the Chinese version, page 2. Still on the definition of manufacture. B. Now this road tanker will be deleted and this will be replaced by tanker or road tanker for consistency with the English version. And then we also add point C, the transfer of regulated hydrogen from one hydrogen container to another hydrogen container, except a transfer of regulated hydrogen from one vessel or hydrogen conveyance vehicle to a hydrogen container or hydrogen conveyance vehicle. End of bracket. Next, meter bypass. After the word gas, we add regulated, other than regulated hydrogen. Page 3, notifiable gas installation. After the word gas in point E, we add in brackets other than regulated hydrogen. Please continue. Now let's go to the English version, page 3. Notifiable gas installation. G. Similar to the previous amendment, ship or road tanker into a tank will be changed to vessel or road tanker into a tank. That is, the word ship will be substituted by vessel. And then page 3, still on notifiable gas installation, in point G, likewise, the Chinese version will also see a deletion of 3 characters for consistency. Ms. Doreen Kong, thank you, Chair. I want to ask about the English version. Notifiable gas installation, I want to have greater clarity. Does it include gas installation involving regulated hydrogen? Thank you, Ms. Kong. For notifiable gas installation, it doesn't include anything involving regulated hydrogen because we do have another specific definition for the regulated hydrogen installation. Page 4, owner. After the word gas vehicle, we add or hydrogen conveyance vehicle. That means apart from the LPG tankers, we also add hydrogen conveyance vehicle. And the owners of these vehicles will be subject to the scope of the bill. Mr. Lai Tong Kwok, the current definition of owner means owner within the meaning of the road traffic ordinance of such vehicle. But when we go to page 8, you will see a similar definition for specified entity. That is owner of a vehicle under road traffic ordinance. So in English, both terms refer to owner, but then for the Chinese version, upon amendment, there will be different expressions. One is owner as it is. The other is owner, 擁有人 in Chinese. So I want to know whether there is a need to clarify this point. Now, the owner on page 4 means a hydrogen conveyance vehicle or a gas vehicle. It could be a vehicle propelled by diesel as long as it's used to convey hydrogen. Now, page 8 in the Chinese version refers to a specified entity, and the owner here refers to the owner of a vehicle running on hydrogen. So these are 2 different types of vehicles. Any follow-up questions, Mr. Lai Tong Kwok? Well, I will come to that when we reach that page. You explain that these are 2 different types of vehicles, but upon amendment, by owner, you mean the owner within the meaning of the road traffic ordinance of the vehicle. But here, under specified entity, you use the word 拥有人 in Chinese meaning owner to mean the owner within the meaning of the road traffic ordinance. So that means in Chinese there are 2 different expressions, albeit the same word owner is used in the English. But I'll come to that when we reach that page. Anything to add from the DOJ? Let me supplement. For specified entity subsection B, well, in fact, we deliberately put down the Chinese term 拥有人, meaning owner here, because we don't want any confusion with the definition of this term owner, as you see on page 4. That is why we specifically use 拥有人 in Chinese to mean owner here under specified entity, so as not to mix up the 2. Can you further elaborate? For specified entity in B, here it says the owner of the train, but in Chinese is 拥有人. So owner This English term could mean 擁有人 or 車主 in Chinese. We deliberately use the word 擁有人 in Chinese instead of 車主 because there is another definition in Cap 51 for 車主 or owner. So we don't want to mix up these two Chinese terms, and that is why we use 擁有人 in Chinese here, in English meaning owner. Right, perhaps let's focus on the current page, and perhaps I'll elaborate later. Next, pressure regulator. After the word gas or pressure of gas, we add other than regulated hydrogen in bracket in English. And then primary meter. Again, in the English version, the quantity of gas supplied through such gas but does not include a secondary meter. After the word gas, we add in bracket other than regulated hydrogen. Secondary meter. Again, in Chinese, there is a deletion. In English, it means where any gas, and then after the word gas, we add other than regulated hydrogen, is applied to a person through a primary meter for ascertaining the quality of such gas, then supplied by that person to another person. Service pipe. After the word gas, we add in bracket other than regulated hydrogen. Please continue. Page 5. Surface riser. In Chinese, more than one floor of the building will be deleted. And then other than regulated hydrogen will be added after the word gas in the English version. Service valve. After the word gas, we add in bracket other than regulated hydrogen. Next, standard cubic meter. And then to any gas after this word, we add in bracket other than regulated hydrogen. Now, let me supplement. I just read out the definitions of a number of terms, including primary meter, secondary meter, service pipe, service riser, service valve, etc. Now, at the moment, these definitions apply to natural gas, town gas, and LPG. We need to specifically provide for an exception that is other than regulated hydrogen. Mr. Dennis Leung, I want to ask a question about service riser. It involves the expression more than one floor of a building. Now, in Chinese, there is a revision to mean more than one floor. So how should we understand this term floor? Is it the first floor to second floor to third floor as a complete floor? Because in tenement buildings, we have half a floor, mezzanine floor, for example. So is there a clear definition in the laws of Hong Kong as to what a floor of a building means? Administration? Thank you for the question. Now, there is no change in the English version. In Chinese, there is an amendment. It refers to the same floor of a building. So what's the rationale behind this amendment? We want to improve the drafting of the provision. There is no substantial change in meaning. Mr. Dennis Leung. Right, no problem. But then what about ground floor, mezzanine floor, and then the first floor? Some buildings have mezzanine floors, so that constitutes half a floor. If we have a service riser on the mezzanine floor, then is it regarded as the same floor of a building or not? What's your consideration?
Thank you for your question. We will regulate all floors, regardless of the definition of a building? Well, I don't think that is a specific answer to Mr. Dennis Leung's question. What I meant was it doesn't matter how the floors are divided in a building. As long as it is a surface riser, regardless of which floor or whether it covers more than one floor of a building, we will regulate those. Well, I was talking about specifically for the mezzanine floors, or for some units, residential units, they may have more than one floor. So would you treat those as a floor or more than a floor? I think it may have something to do with building legislation as well. Perhaps after the meeting you can review this, and I think you may consult DOJ on this. Well, I think with specific scenarios such as those that have mezzanine floors, how can we manage the surface risers? I do understand that all surface risers will be regulated, but I think we can talk about the legal foundations of such regulation. Thank you, member, for your question. Well, the definitions here under Chapter 51, they are different parts of gas mains. Say service pipe and service risers. These are just different parts of gas mains. I do understand the member's concern, however, whether when it comes to mains in mezzanine floors or other floors, will that cause a loophole? But then, honestly, whether it's service pipes or service risers, they need to conform to all technical specifications anyway, and they will be under regulation. I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear enough. Basically, we are saying that there are different floors. It's just because we are trying to define the different parts, but it does not affect the degree of regulation or whether they are under regulation. Yes, Assistant Director. Well, we have definitions for service pipes and service risers. For service pipes, there is nothing about floors, so these two should cover everything. Mr. Dennis Leung, any further questions? I think they can also review the relevant legislation. I think there should be very specific definitions when it comes to law. I think they can review the building management ordinance if necessary. I actually have some questions on this. I do understand that all service pipes and service risers will be under regulation, but I want to make some clarifications. If it is, as Mr. Dennis Leung said, when it comes to mezzanine floors, would they be seen as not a floor, or would that be seen as a full floor or more than one floor? And do you have any definitions you refer to specifically for floors? If you have, which legislation is it? I think we can perhaps review the relevant legislation and provide a response. We will provide details on the definitions and other pieces of legislation. Well, I think you can review this and provide a response to us after the meeting. Thank you. We're now at page 6 of the marked up copy. For the definition of store, we are repealing semicolon or and substituted it with a colon. And in paragraph A2B, we have repealed the comma, substituted it with a semicolon or. And after paragraph A2, we have added a Part 3 regulated hydrogen in any hydrogen containers, including a single hydrogen container situated in a place including part of any premises where the aggregated nominal water capacity of the containers is more than 75 liters. We are amending definition of store essentially to cover hydrogen containers. Mr. Tony said, well, I think here the focus is hydrogen containers. They do not focus on how much hydrogen is being stored, right? It seems that way from the wording. Also, when it comes to LPG, it would be 130 liters. Now hydrogen, it's 75. Why is there such a difference? Thank you. Thank you, member, for your questions. In C, we are focusing on hydrogen containers indeed, and we are setting the capacity threshold of 75 liters. Essentially, if it is less than 75 liters, one will not be seen as storing hydrogen. And hydrogen has a threshold of 75 liters, basically to delineate whether it is being stored or otherwise. And the member mentioned the threshold for LPG being 130 liters. We are adopting 75 liters for hydrogen because we believe it is an appropriate threshold for storage. Okay, I understand you are talking about the capacity of hydrogen containers here. Whether it is being stored, you are trying to delineate that here. Correct. All right. The clarification has been made. Please go on. Thank you. Let's now refer to the English text. Page 6 of the English marked up copy. We have amendments to the definition of store. In paragraph A, we have repealed the word shall and substituted it with is to. This is on DOJ's advice because we should repeal the outdated use of shall and substitute it with is to, which is more modern. Let us go back to the Chinese text. For definition of store, paragraph B to B, we have repealed semicolon or and substituted it with a semicolon. And in B3B, we have the same, we have a different amendment. We have repealed the semicolon and substituted it with semicolon or. And in definition of store, after paragraph B3, we've added a part 4 to have some definition of hydrogen containers. Please proceed. Now, in the Chinese text, for the definition of supply, we have repealed the original definition and substituted it with in relation to gas other than regulated hydrogen means the supply of any gas through gas pipes or in containers, whether by sale or otherwise to consumers of such gas, but does not include the supply of liquefied petroleum gas in disposable cylinders. And in relation to regulated hydrogen means the supply of regulated hydrogen through hydrogen pipes or in hydrogen containers, whether by sale or otherwise to consumers of such regulated hydrogen. So here we have for regulated hydrogen and gases other than regulated hydrogen, different definitions of supply, essentially with the different parts. Mr. Letong Kwok, I have some questions. I understand paragraph B, it is with reference to the existing definition, but I think the definition is a bit long-winded. So I'm thinking you can perhaps say instead, in relation to regulated hydrogen means whether by sale or otherwise, the supply of regulated hydrogen through hydrogen pipes or in hydrogen containers to consumers of such regulated hydrogen. I think you can amend this if you agree. I keep an open mind. This is just a suggestion whether you change it. Now, in the English text, excuse me, in the English text, excuse me, I have to find it. It's on page 6. Yes, I know that. Well, let me first refer to the Chinese text. It's something that contains or has contained. So there is something that is present perfect as well as present tense. When you talk about has contained, but now does not contain the relevant gases, they are still under regulation. So is it the case that it has been done once, it will forever be under regulation? All right, can you please respond to this point? Correct. It is the same way with regulation of LPG. If they do not use that anymore, they can go through decommissioning and they can also submit a gas-free certificate to us. All right. I guess the administration can review the wording for paragraph B after the meeting as suggested by the member, Mr. Rincon. Well, I note for gases other than regulated hydrogen, you said it would not include in the definition of supply the supply of LPG in disposable cylinders. But for hydrogen, you do not have the same exception. Why? Because I do note in other places there are hydrogen gases in disposable cylinders. Thank you, Mr. Rincon, for your question. We actually assess the relevant risks. We want to regulate hydrogen in both general containers and disposable cylinders. Excuse me. But for other gases, when we talk about LPG and disposable cylinders, they are used for hot pot in general. And we do not expect hydrogen to be used in hot pots. So we consider there is no need to include this exception in paragraph B. Well, when you're talking about the supply of LPG in disposable cylinders, you do not talk about the size of the cylinders. You talked about these being used for hot pot. But this is just your assumption. There is actually no condition or there is no specific detail here. So they are essentially not regulated, right? Yes, Mr. Chung. In general, when they need to refill the cylinders or refill the containers, they will definitely be of bigger sizes than those in disposable cylinders. If it is in containers that can be used more than once, in general, these companies will need to undergo registration to carry on such business. For disposable cylinders, the gases are, these are safer, so we do not consider that they need regulation. Well, actually, under the Gas Safety Ordinance, we have a definition for disposable cylinders. So this is why we have an exception here.
Any follow-up, Ms. Doreen Carr? No, thank you. Right, please continue. Transport. The original definition will be repealed to be replaced by A. In relation to liquefied petroleum gas means the conveyance of such gas by a gas vehicle. And B. In relation to regulated hydrogen means the conveyance of regulated hydrogen by a hydrogen conveyance vehicle. So it sets out in A and B the conveyance of LPG and regulated hydrogen. Ms. Doreen Carr. Well, I see that in this bill, the word transport appears once here. At most other times, you use the word conveyance instead. So can you explain the difference? Now, we don't see a major difference between transport and conveyance. Both are referring to the transportation or conveyance of LPG cylinders or hydrogen cylinders. Now, I ask this question because I see that the word conveyance is more frequently used to describe the carrying of regulated hydrogen. So I don't know whether these two words have the same scope of meaning, but as long as you just explain that they are actually the same, then I have no further questions. But I have a follow-up question. If they mean the same, then what's the reason for adopting two different terms? Now, there is this term transport here because if we go to the title of the bill, or you will find that the word transport is used in the short title. But I think that conveyance is used as a more general term. Right, please continue. Next, the definition of town gas. Now, in Chinese version, there is a revision. That is, a mixture with methane will be deleted to be replaced by a mixture containing hydrogen and methane. The next one is function. I'm going to read out some additional definitions. First, train. It means any train on premises specified in paragraphs A1 and B1 of the definition of railway premises in section 2.1 of the Mass Transit Railway Ordinance. Please continue. Regulated hydrogen. Chairman, do I need to read out the definition again? We already proposed an amendment to it. Let me read it out. Now, regulated hydrogen means a gas that is constituted by 1. Hydrogen and 2. Other constituents, if any, that are non-flammable as a whole. B. That has a hydrogen concentration of at least 50% by volume. And 3. Or C. That is used or intended to be used as fuel for. And then A. For the propulsion of vehicle or train, and B. The operation of any machinery other than machinery of a vessel or aircraft. In bracket. Next, specified entity. In relation to a hydrogen system means A. If the hydrogen system is used or intended to be used for the propulsion of a vehicle, the owner within the meaning of the Road Traffic Ordinance Cap 374 of the vehicle. B. If the hydrogen system is used or intended to be used for the propulsion of a train, then the owner of the train. C. If the hydrogen is used or intended to be used for the operation of any machinery other than machinery installed on a vehicle or train for the propulsion of the vehicle or train or machinery of a vessel or aircraft, the owner of the machinery. We propose this new definition of specified entity. This is because the specified entity will need to fulfill certain obligations to ensure the safe operation of the vehicle, train, or machinery in operation. I'd just like to remind members that the Chinese and English versions have a different layout. Mr. Lai Tong Kwok, my question is this. I am looking at the English version. Here, it says that the use or intended to be used for the propulsion of a train, of a vehicle, and then the owner, if the hydrogen is used. It means the owner within the meaning of the Road Traffic Ordinance, Cap 374 of the vehicle. So I see a dash here. I think that the owner here refers to the system and the vehicle. Is that right, DOJ? Yes. So I now turn to Cap 374, the Road Traffic Ordinance. Because you refer to the owner within the meaning of the Road Traffic Ordinance. Now, in English, the word owner is used in the RTO. In Chinese, however, again, we see two different terms being used, 擁有人 and 車主, to mean owner. And then, for 車主's definition or owner, point B, it refers to the owner of a vehicle registered under his name, as well as a person who is in custody of the vehicle or who uses the vehicle. So as I understand, this term already captures the owner of the vehicle as set out in point A of the specified entity. So does it mean there is now an overlapping here between points A and B here? I'll give the floor to the Department of Justice. Right, as the member correctly points out, there are two limbs. First is the vehicle in question. The other is owner within the meaning of the RTO. There is no overlapping. But what I'm suggesting is this. The RTO provides a definition for the term owner in a much wider scope. And are you trying to narrow down the scope of this term here in the bill? Right, when we say a vehicle here, we should read what happens before that in point A. That is, if the hydrogen system is used for the propulsion of a vehicle. What's the point of having a dash here? Well, it's frequently used in our drafting practice because we need to meet the two limbs in order to match a meaning of owner. That is, it must be a system used for the propulsion of a vehicle, and then it's also an owner within the RTO's meaning. Without the use of a dash, the qualifier will become extremely long, and that is why we separate the qualifiers with a dash, and that's also the usual drafting approach in the Chinese version as well, to make the provision more accessible to readers. So Mr. Lai Tong Kwok's understanding is correct. There are two limbs under this definition, and that means comparing to the meaning in the RTO, it has a narrower scope of meaning. Thank you, member, for your question. Perhaps we'll go back and review this provision. Yes, please go back and give it a thought, because in particular in English there is only one term, but in Chinese there are two separate terms. Well, I know that the definition is the same under the road traffic ordinance, but then as you explained just now, there is a minor difference. So I think you may not be able to resolve this at this point. Please go back and give it a thought. Overall speaking, I don't see any problem with the drafting of the bill, but perhaps you can go back and consider improving the expression to provide greater clarity. Next, Ms. Doreen Kong. Chairman, I'm reading the definition of specified entity. I think we need to amend the definition for 车主 in Chinese, meaning owner. It means in relation to gas vehicle or hydrogen conveyance vehicle. That's not exactly a hydrogen conveyance vehicle. A here, it says the hydrogen system is used for the propulsion of a vehicle. So that means it's not a hydrogen conveyance vehicle. Isn't it an error here when it comes to the definition of owner? Because under specified entity, point A, it doesn't refer to a hydrogen conveyance vehicle. Please go back and revisit this. Mr. Lai Kung Kwok made a very good point. I see points A, B, C under this definition, and when you explain that you have there is an owner for a vehicle, for a train, and for machinery, then there is not clear. It's not clear whether the owner referred to in B and C adopts a narrower scope than A. Because for the train and machinery, it is possible that the owner does not have control over them. In other places, not only will the regulation apply to the owner, but also to somebody who is in possession or in control of the things you mentioned here. Will you go back and give it a thought? Any response? Thank you, Ms. Doreen Kong, for the questions. For the definition of owner, as we discussed previously, it refers to a hydrogen conveyance vehicle. Now, it may not run on hydrogen. It's just a vehicle that conveys hydrogen. Here, the difference is under A, the vehicle runs on hydrogen. So there is a difference. Ms. Kong, well, I'd still urge the administration to review these matters as they have undertaken to do. I still don't think there is a clear definition for terms such as 擁有人 or 車主, meaning owner in English. Please go back and give it a thought. Right. Perhaps you can reconsider all these definitions and then follow up on them in one go. Right. If there is no other question, we move on to the next one, hydrogen system. In relation to a vehicle, train means a system that consists of the following or is used or intended to be used for the propulsion of the vehicle or train. 1. A hydrogen container. 2. A hydrogen fuel cell or combustion chamber of the vehicle or train. And 3. An assembly of equipment includes pipes, hoses, and pressure regulating devices connecting the hydrogen container to the hydrogen fuel cell or combustion chamber. Or B, in relation to any machinery other than machinery installed on a vehicle or train for the propulsion of the vehicle or train or machinery of a vessel or aircraft, means a system that consists of the following and is used or intended to be used for the operation of the machinery. 1. A hydrogen container. 2. A hydrogen fuel cell of the machinery. And 3. An assembly of equipment including pipes, hoses, and pressure regulating devices connecting the hydrogen container to the hydrogen fuel cell. Mr. Zhang, as you read out the Chinese version, please also tell us the page number in English as well.
歡議員
Mr. Rincon. Chair, I have some questions as a layman. When you talk about hydrogen, for hydrogen installation and hydrogen system, what exactly are the differences? Because when you talk about gas, you do not say gas system, you only say gas installations. And when you talk about Section 8, you would have fittings as well as installation, so these are different. So when you talk about installation system and gas fittings for regulated hydrogen, what are these? How are these different? Thank you, Ms. Kong, for your question. Basically, hydrogen system will be bigger. Say stations on streets. Well, actually, excuse me, it's hydrogen installation that is of larger scale. For hydrogen system, it would be, say, in a vehicle, a system that supplies hydrogen. So that's the difference between hydrogen installations and hydrogen systems. Let me add something. For hydrogen installations, they have a higher amount of hydrogen that will be dealt with, and we have approval processes for the use as well as construction of such facilities. As for hydrogen systems, we will regulate them in another way because the amount involved is lower. So for the use of a hydrogen system, one would have to apply for a permit from the EMSD. Thank you. Any follow-up questions from Mr. Rincon? If not, we'll move on to the definition of hydrogen pipe. Thank you. Page 9 of the marked up copy. Hydrogen pipe means any pipe used or to be used to convey regulated hydrogen. Please move on to the next definition. Thank you. The next definition is hydrogen installation. It means an installation that A is a receiving terminal for the importation of regulated hydrogen. B consists of one or more facilities for the supply of regulated hydrogen. C consists of one or more hydrogen pipes, the aggregated nominal water capacity of which is more than 75 liters. D consists of one or more facilities for the manufacture of regulated hydrogen. E consists of one or more facilities for the operation of any machinery other than machinery of a vessel or aircraft using regulated hydrogen. F consists of two parts, and then G and H. So let's start with F. Consists of one or more stores containing regulated hydrogen, and 2. If regulated hydrogen is supplied to consumers through hydrogen pipes from such a store, the outlet, pipework, vaporizer, and pressure regulating installation in relation to the supply. 3. Consists of one or more installations for the servicing of 1. A hydrogen system of a vehicle, train, or any machinery other than machinery of a vessel or aircraft, or 2. A hydrogen container, or H. Uses any process that involves the transfer of regulated hydrogen from one hydrogen container to another hydrogen container, except a transfer of regulated hydrogen from a vessel or hydrogen conveyance vehicle to a hydrogen container or hydrogen conveyance vehicle. So what I said about the definition of hydrogen installation, the owner of which would have to go through approval processes for construction of such facilities and use. They would also need to have relevant personnel conduct regular inspections. This is similar to our regulation of other gases at the moment. Thank you. Mr. In Kong, you have questions? Yes. For E, you have an exception other than machinery of a vessel or aircraft. I think you have adopted the approach of including exceptions in many professions. You have introduced an exception for other than regulated hydrogen, and for hydrogen system, you have also introduced an exception being other than machinery installed on a vehicle, etc. So why is it that there are such exceptions? Well, for hydrogen system in particular, the machinery installed on a vehicle or train or in an aircraft will be dealt with by legislation relating or enforced by the or by the Marine Department and the Civil Aviation Department. Well, do you have specific definitions for machinery? Basically, it would just be machinery powered by hydrogen for its operations. We do not have a specific definition in this ordinance. Alright, so in the gas safety ordinance, when it is machinery installed on a vehicle or train or an aircraft, it will not be under regulation of this ordinance. If it is vessels or aircraft, you would not be regulating the machinery inside, but you do not have a definition of machinery. Well, as long as it's vessels or aircrafts, we will not regulate such. Perhaps let me give an example. We have machinery elsewhere, say in construction sites. These will be covered. Well, I think we don't have a crystal ball. We can't say what is going to happen in future. I think what is important here is the term machinery. If you are introducing an exception that targets machinery regardless of where it is installed, it is kind of confusing. Say in paragraph B, you say in relation to any machinery other than machinery. I think it is quite confusing. You do not have any definitions for machinery, so it may be a large part or a small part. So what is machinery in particular? Maybe I can clarify this some more. Any machinery on land will be covered under this ordinance, and we are talking about an exception being machinery installed on vehicles, trains, or aircrafts. Mr. Rincon, are you clear about this part? Well, I am still somewhat confused, but I don't want to take up your time. I will digest the information after the meeting. I think the administration does have a pretty clear concept about this definition. If you need, you may ask more questions or seek further clarification. Now, other members, are there any other questions on the definition of hydrogen installation? If not, we'll move on to the definition of hydrogen container. Hydrogen container means the receptacle used or to be used to contain regulated hydrogen, but does not include a hydrogen pipe. This is a part of the process that we're regulating. Alright, please move on. The definition of hydrogen fuel cell means an electrochemical device that without any consumption of the electrodes or electrolytes of the device converts the chemical energy of hydrogen in the presence of an oxidant into electrical output that is used for the propulsion of a vehicle or train or for the operation of any machinery other than machinery of a vessel or aircraft. So hydrogen fuel cell is a part of a hydrogen system. The other parts of the hydrogen system will be regulated under hydrogen system. Please go on. Hydrogen conveyance vehicle means a motor vehicle designed and constructed or adapted primarily for the conveyance of regulated hydrogen on roads. Please proceed. Thank you. Page 11. Well, actually, page 12 of the English marked-up copy, section 8, is amended. It is about regulations. In subsection 1, we're repealing the parts of such regulations as he thinks fit and substitute it with regulations. This is on the DOJ's advice to remove non-gender neutral wording. In subsection 1, paragraph B, after pipes, we will add or hydrogen pipes. In section 8.1, we will repeal pipes and substitute it with pipes or hydrogen pipes. In Chinese, it will be longer. It is basically removing the part and replacing with another part, but it has the same meaning in English. We are making the relevant amendments so that for works undertaken in the vicinity of hydrogen pipes, there are some penalties and regulations. Well, is there a reason why you are saying all hydrogen pipes? How are they different from pipes? Well, actually, we have specific definitions for pipes because pipes are for the 3 other gases, which is why we have to say here all hydrogen pipes. Alright, please proceed. I will now refer members to the English marked-up copy, page 12. On page 12 in the English text. For section 8.2a, we will repeal the part which is shall and substitute that part with that must. It is again on the DOJ's advice to use more modern wording, so instead of shall, we should use must. Please proceed. Thank you. We'll go back to the Chinese text. Page 11 of the marked-up copy in Chinese. We will repeal specifically that is only in Chinese text. The regulation of the following items and the safety measures that should be taken for the following items to have something that is less long-winded and to say regulate as a verb rather than noun. Mr. Andrew Lam, you have questions. Yes. I do see under this we have fittings. So there is no definition for fittings. Fittings can be quite minute. And how are you going to take enforcement action against fittings? Are you giving it some sort of labels? Also, when works are being undertaken, the works may be for non-regulated hydrogen. If the fittings are to be used for regulated hydrogen in future, are there some procedures for that specifically? And how are we going to have fittings for both purposes? The questions of Mr. Andrew Lam are very valid, and we actually already have some equipment manufacturing hydrogen now in Hong Kong, and we would have fittings that would be safe valves, the smaller components in pipes in general. they will be regulated under this ordinance. We will approve the relevant fittings with reference to international and national standards. The gas safety ordinance or the dangerous goods governance will regulate the relevant fittings. Mr. Andrew Lam, I do appreciate there is some form of regulation, but then I think for gases, they are manufactured with reference to certain standards and the equipment also. But then I think there are also the more general components such as screws. Would you have in your administrative guidelines the specific components you would take enforcement action against for the more general purpose components that are used in any form or any equipment? You will not be regulating those. Thank you.
Thank you, member, for the further question. Basically, we approve applications based on international standards or national standards. As for which set of standards to adopt, that depends on the applications we receive. Basically, there are two sets of standards to follow, either ISO international standard or 国标 or national standard. There are clear specifications as to the key components. I think that a general engineer will be equipped with the knowledge to determine the applications. We do have sufficient experience. From the public's perspective, that means you have an established system. Now, you talked about the key components that are commonly used, and you have a well-established and effective system, and that this is known to the trade. Things are clear, right? Next, Ms. Doreen Kong. A question here, fittings for regulated hydrogen. The original provision reads gas fittings. There is a separate definition. As you mentioned, gas valves. So, I am perplexed. Why shouldn't there be a separate definition for fittings for regulated hydrogen? Because without this definition, there will be confusion. How do we tell what is an installation and what is the fitting? Now that was a question on 2A2. I have another question on 2A3. In 2A3, you regulate gas fittings but not fittings for regulated hydrogen. So why is it that fittings for regulated hydrogen is included only in subsection 2A2 but not 2A3, and in 2A3 you put down a hydrogen system of a vehicle? There is a definition for gas fitting in gas safety ordinance. It refers to fittings for domestic use, so it's broader in scope. For hydrogen or fittings for regulated hydrogen, we consider hydrogen system, hydrogen installation, and fitting as a whole when we vet applications. So it comes with a whole package. In this system, we consider the whole package for vehicles, conveyance vehicles, or hydrogen as fuel for power generation. Chairman, I beg to differ. You can't just think from your own perspective. You need to think from the perspective of a potential investor. they may find it really puzzling to have a separate definition for installation, for fitting, and for system. You can't just guess that people would understand what gas fittings mean. Please go back and consider providing a separate definition for fittings for regulated hydrogen. For the three gases available in the market, town gas, natural gas, and LPG, let me pick it natural gas for illustration. We do not have a definition for natural gas fittings. This is because basically we're talking about a big system, and it's very clear to the trade what standards should be adopted, be it ISO or national standard, should be adopted in the design of this system. So for small to medium-sized fittings, we are of the view that as far as the trade is concerned, and in fact not just confining to our local trade but also trade around the world, there is a clear consensus as to what it means. As to the gas fitting and gas safety ordinance, it involves mostly domestic use gas fittings. We need to make sure that there is a clear definition to capture different types of fittings used for domestic purposes. Ms. Doreen Kong, I'm sorry to say that I beg to differ. For gas fittings, of course, you don't need to specifically set a definition for natural gas fittings. But here, since you regulate hydrogen, you need to make things clear because you have fittings for regulated hydrogen as a separate category. For fittings, the word itself does not have a definition in the bill. So I just want to explain my point. I don't want to waste time, Chairman. Let's not dwell on this issue. If they're unable to give an answer, then so be it. But I want to pick up on it. As I understand, fittings include key and generic components, like Mr. Andrew Lam said. So according to the administration, the trade is familiar with these things. Now, we basically use either the national standard or ISO. Is it possible that these standards contain definitions? Right, thank you, Chairman, for the questions. As far as international standards or national standards are concerned, I'd say that there aren't definitions, but there are very clear specifications on the design of the fittings. So does it mean that definitely they will have the relevant definition? Let me supplement, Chairman. I echo what Mr. Wong said. For domestic use gas fittings, they may come in a more simple form. For example, as I mentioned, for service pipe, there may be an L-shaped pipe. Imagine water pipes. For regulated hydrogen, however, we want to keep things flexible. Say, in a power plant, there may be a power generation unit that contains thousands of components. And that they may need to follow ASME standards, and that's a kind of international standard for certain components. For some others, such as nuts and bolts, they follow different international standards. So I just mentioned the power plant, and for example, we also have natural gas reception facilities that follows different international standards. So if we confine the meaning of fittings to just some specific ones in the law, then we may not be able to catch up with technological advancements in the future. We may inadvertently exclude some of the fittings that can be used. Right, if there are no other questions, please continue. we stop at 2A, so we should continue with 2A2, and then after gas, the word gas, we delete fittings and then we add fittings and fittings for regulated hydrogen. Roman numeral 3, in the Chinese version it will be repealed, and then in under 3, work involving the fabrication, connection, disconnection, testing, commissioning, decommissioning, maintenance, repair, or replacement of A. gas fittings, B. a hydrogen system of a vehicle. In other words, the CE Council will be empowered to make regulations in relation to the gas fittings or hydrogen system of a vehicle. Can we check the English version as well? I see that it has a different format than the Chinese text. Well, can you help explain to us the different formats adopted in Chinese and English versions? Well, I'll explain the change in English version. That's on page 12. Indeed, in the Chinese version, we have capital A, capital B. In the English version, it says A. gas fittings, or B. a hydrogen system of a vehicle. And both come under 2A Roman numeral 3. I just read out the Chinese version. It relates to work involving certain procedures, and in the English version we have a more simplified way of drafting. Right, if there are no further questions, please go on. Page 12 in the Chinese version or 13 in the English. 2A Roman numeral 4. A. After the word gas, in bracket other than regulated hydrogen will be added. And then B, again, for the manufacture of gas other than regulated hydrogen in English. And then E, pressure regulating installations. After that, we'll add supplied with gas and then other than in regulated hydrogen in bracket from an intermediate or high pressure gas main or service pipe. G. Some deletions in the Chinese version. Any process which involves the transfer of LPG in liquid form from one container to another. And then after that, we add the construction and use of hydrogen installation or. And the next one, under Roman numeral 5, after gas pipes or hydrogen pipes. The amendment seeks to empower the CE Council to make regulations in relation to the safety of work processes involving gas installation, hydrogen gas installations, or the works near gas pipes. Next one. Roman numeral 5. Well, we're actually on page 13 of the Chinese version. And that's page 14 on the English version. We add 6 numeral points. 7 hydrogen container, 8 hydrogen pipe, 9 fitting for regulated hydrogen, 10 hydrogen installation, 11 hydrogen system, and 12 hydrogen conveyance vehicle. The CN Council may make regulations to specify test examination inspections to be carried out in relation to these 6 additional items.
Any questions from members? If not, we'll move on. Thank you. We are now repealing the part in 82C1 that says paragraph A3 and substitute it with paragraph A3A. In section 82D, after vehicles, we will add the part and hydrogen conveyance vehicles. This amendment basically gives the power to the Chief Executive in Council to make some regulations for the issuance or revocation of permits for hydrogen conveyance vehicles. In section 82F, we will repeal everything after maintained and substitute it with the following: by 1 registered persons, 2 owners of gas installations referred to in paragraph A4, 3 owners of gas vehicles, 4 owners of hydrogen installations, 5 specified entities of hydrogen systems, or 6 owners of hydrogen conveyance vehicles. So for the 6 groups of people mentioned, this provision gives the power to the Chief Executive in Council to make regulations on the records to be maintained by these persons. Thank you. Mr. Kong, you have questions? Yes. Many of the categories of personnel regulated are owners. Why is it that only owners have to maintain the records? If they are those in possession of the relevant or in control of the relevant items, don't they have to maintain the records or documents? Who's going to answer this question? Thank you, member, for the question. We may need to take a more macro perspective because the gas safety ordinance has different modes of regulation. We have the registered companies in the upstream. They have their operations in general regulated, including safety systems and contingency plans. These will already be reviewed in the approval process. But for owners, say vehicle owners, we are talking about for the machinery or systems that are of smaller scale, and the owners may not have much information to maintain. This definition is, or this provision is for that particular scenario. I think it is a very specific scenario. I think this may be a catch-all provision, right? Correct. Because as I said earlier, we are already regulating the registered companies, and upstream operations in general are regulated, and these are downstream operations, and we have specific requirements so that we can regulate the whole chain. Okay, if there are no further questions from members, we'll move on. Thank you. In 82G3, well, after that, we will add 4 hydrogen installations, 5 hydrogen systems, 6 hydrogen conveyance vehicles, or 7 hydrogen pipes. This change provides Chief Executive in Council with the power to make regulations in relation to these 4 types of equipment. Thank you. Please move on. Page 14 of the marked up copy in Chinese, section 83H, specifically in the Chinese text. For the following items fees must be paid. In Chinese, it will be substituted by fees to be paid in relation to the following matters under the regulations. This is to tie in with the drafting in the English version on the DOJ's advice. Next, in section 8.4a, we are repealing the part semicolon and substituted it with a semicolon. After section 8.4a, we will add a paragraph AB, make different provisions for different types of gases, and this will again provide the power to the Chief Executive and Council to make different provisions. Alright, members, any questions? If not, let's move on to section 12, powers of entry, etc. I will now first draw members' attention to page 17 of the English marked up copy. That is, we will be reviewing the English text. On page 17, section 12, powers of entry, etc. For subsection 1, paragraph D, we will repeal the word ship and substitute it with vessel. Okay? If it's alright, we'll go back to the Chinese text. Page 16 of the Chinese marked up copy, section 12.1f. After pipe, we will add or hydrogen pipe. In Chinese, we will remove a larger part, but essentially it will have the same meaning. This change will give inspectors the power to inspect hydrogen pipes as well. Thank you, Mr. In Kong. I have a question. I note in section 13AA, it is about improvement notices. So for section 12, when you talk about the powers, would that include the power to affix improvement notices in the premises? Well, we actually asked about this. There will be such powers covered under section 12. Okay, I have no other questions. Thank you. Let's go to page 18 of the English marked up copy. It's just like an earlier change. We will repeal the word ship and have vessel instead. Well, I actually have a question. So there are 3 amendments that are of this change. Why is there such change? Well, I understand that on DOJ's advice, vessels would cover more ships, and for the regulation of hydrogen, this is more appropriate. Okay? Please move on. Page 19 of the marked up copy in Chinese, section 13AA, ancillary provisions in relation to improvement notices. For the section, we will first repeal subsection 1 and substitute it with subsection 1 without limiting section 13.2. A improvement notice may include instructions as to repairs or alterations to be effected to a notifiable gas installation, hydrogen installation, or hydrogen system, whether constructed before, on, or after the commencement of this section, the subject of the contravention or matter to which the notice relates, and an improvement notice may only do so if the authority states in the notice that the authority is satisfied that the repairs or alterations are necessary for the proper maintenance and operation of the installation or system for the prevention of fire, explosion, or other danger arising from the installation or system. And B, an improvement notice where paragraph A is applicable must afford the person on whom the notice is served the choice of decommissioning the installation or system as an alternative to effecting the repairs or alterations. Please proceed. Sure. In subsection 2, we will repeal everything before paragraph A and substitute it with subsection 2, where a person on whom an improvement notice to which subsection 1 applies is served fails to effect the repairs or alterations to or to decommission the notifiable gas installation, hydrogen installation, or hydrogen system, the subject of the conservation or matter to which the notice relates, then after that we will have in 2A1, after installation, add or system. And in 2A2, we'll repeal everything after installation and substitute it with or system until such time, if any, as the repairs or alterations are effected. And in 2B, after near the installation, we'll add or system. And 2B1, it's the same. Any questions from members? We have 5 minutes until the end of the meeting. So we would want to complete scrutiny of section 13AA. It may go past 12:45. So I'll extend the meeting by not more than 15 minutes. Do members have any objections? If not, we will finish the scrutiny of section 13AA before we end today. Alright, if there are no other questions, we will proceed with the clause-by-clause examination. I will now draw members' attention to the English text. In specifically subsection 2B, in the English text, we will repeal shall and substitute it with the authority must. Again, it is on DOJ's advice to use more modern drafting. And then, on page 20 of the English marked up copy, we will remove the part that says installation about affixing a notice. And in 2B1, we will, after installation, add or system. This is somewhat different from the Chinese changes. Alright, please proceed. We'll now go back to the English text, page 21. Subsection 3, again, we'll repeal shall and substitute it with may. If there are no questions, we will go to page 22 of the Chinese marked up copy. In subsection 3A, we will repeal installation and substitute it with installation, hydrogen installation, or hydrogen system. And then after that, in 3A, we will repeal where he knows or ought reasonably to know that the installation and substitute it with if the person knows or ought reasonably to know that the installation or system. In subsection 4, we will repeal installation, the expenses thereof shall, and substitute it with installation, hydrogen installation, or hydrogen system, the expenses of the repairs, alternations, or the commissioning. Basically, without the authority's approval, one cannot recommission the equipment or do anything really, unless they rectify the situation. Alright, in subsection 4A, we'll repeal the part be borne by the person or whom, substituted with must be borne by the person on whom. And we have basically, for the fees, we have made some changes. to the relevant arrangements, Ms. Doreen Kong. I have some questions. I do note in subsection 4 there is a mistake in the English text. It should not say alternations, it should be alterations. Correct? Because that's what it says in Chinese. DOJ?
alternation 呢個四呢個字。呢個
alteration。
呢個我哋翻。
Yes, we'll go back and review this part. Thank you. Right, thank you. Would the DOJ please go back and double check? Please continue. So that means we've completed 13AA. Perhaps we'll pause here, but I have a question in relation to what we've gone through, including this one. Any more questions? If not, we will stop here today. In relation to the items raised by members today, would the administration please provide a written reply and supplementary information if necessary, including the items for follow-up action. CB bracket 21086/2025 bracket 02. That's the administration's reply, and they've indicated that in relation to clause 336, there will be a committee stage amendment for the definition of regulated hydrogen. So would the administration please provide the draft CSA to the Bills Committee for consideration? Members, if you want to move amendments, please also give us the draft via the Secretariat. AOB. We've reserved another slot that is the 13th of June 2025, a Friday, at 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning for the next meeting. So if there's nothing else on the AOB, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.